Do you think Cinderella was still madly in love with Prince Charming 5 years after their wedding? Or was she a little bit resentful, disappointed, upset, distracted? We have these stories about falling in love, but the stories don't answer the question of how do I live happily ever after? How does a person create a happy marriage? How do I become capable of actually loving someone after the honeymoon is over? Cinderella and Prince Charming are the perfect example because they got caught in the falling in love trap. When you fall in love, you have these intense feelings that make it so easy to treat your partner really well, but those feelings only last for a couple of years, and if you let your feelings drive your behavior after the honeymoon's over, you're going to start treating your partner poorly. So you treated your partner really well while your feelings were pushing you to do that, but as soon as your feelings change, your behavior also changes, and now you're not treating each other very well anymore. So if you want to get out of the falling in love trap, what you have to do is hold yourself to a standard of treating your partner well, regardless of how you feel. So I have to separate out my behavior from my feelings. So let's say I'm angry at my wife for some reason. That's fine. It's okay to be angry, but I don't want to let my anger determine how I treat her. I'm not going to let my behavior be determined by my feelings. Unless I'm having warm and loving feelings, then that's fine. But when I'm having unkind or angry feelings, those feelings need to be separate from my behavior. I need to treat my wife well, even when I don't feel like treating her well. I have to hold myself to that standard of behavior. That's what it means to be a person of character. If I'm a person of character, I treat people well, even when I don't feel like it. This doesn't mean that I'm going to be a pushover. In fact, I'm less likely to treat my wife well if I let her push me around than if I stand my ground and hold on to what I want. If I don't set up for what I want and what I see and what I think is important, then I'm going to get even more angry and more resentful, and that's going to make it really hard for me to treat my wife well. So the secret to creating a good marriage is for me to be able to stand up for what I want, to hold my ground with kindness and compassion and respect. It's easy to talk about, but it's not easy to do. Now we know how this story ends. We know that Prince Charming and Cinderella lived happily ever after. So that means that they figured this out. They figured out how to hold themselves to a standard of treating each other well, even when they didn't feel like doing that. They figured out how to respect each other, even when they didn't like each other. And they figured out how to be decent to each other when they didn't get what they wanted. Because that's the secret to living happily ever after.